office, so he asked to be given their number. As he did so, his eye caught an advertisement, which was hung just over the telephone. It was an elaborate design in black and white, pointing out the merits of a particular kind of soap called the Venus. A classical lady holding a looking-glass in one hand and a cake of this invaluable soap in the other was standing in a sphere surrounded by pointed rays, which was no doubt intended to represent the most brilliant of the planets. Fletcher sat down on the stool and took the receiver in his hand. As he did so, he had for 1 second the impression that the floor underneath him gave way, and that he was falling down a precipice. Before he had time to realize what was happening, the sensation of falling left him. He shook himself as though he had been asleep, and for one moment a faint recollection, as though of the dreams of the night, twinkled in his mind and vanished beyond all possibility of recall. He said to himself that he had had a long and curious dream, and he knew it was too late to remember what it had been about. Then he opened his eyes wide and looked round him. He was standing on the slope of a hill. At his feet was a kind of green moss, very soft to tread on. It was sprinkled here and there with light red, wax-like flowers, such as he had never seen before. He was standing in an open space. Beneath him was a plain, covered with what seemed to be gigantic mushrooms, much taller than a man. Above him rose a mass of vegetation, and over all this was a dense, heavy, streaming cloud, faintly glimmering with a white, silvery light which seemed to be beyond it. He walked towards the vegetation, and soon found himself in the middle of a wood, or rather of a jungle. Tangled plants grew on every side. Large hanging creepers, with great blue flowers, hung downwards. There was a profound stillness in this wood. There were no birds singing, and he heard not the slightest rustle in the rich undergrowth. It was oppressively hot, and the air was full of a pungent, aromatic sweetness. He felt as though he were in a hothouse full of gardenias and stephanotis. At the same time, the atmosphere of the place was pleasant to him. It was neither strange nor disagreeable. He felt at home in this green, shimmering jungle, and in this hot, aromatic twilight, as though he had lived there all his life. He walked mechanically onwards, as if he were going to a definite spot of which he knew. He walked fast, but in spite of the oppressive atmosphere and the thickness of the growth, he grew neither hot nor out of breath. On the contrary, he took pleasure in the motion, and the stifling sweet air seemed to invigorate him. He walked steadily on for over 3 hours, choosing his way nicely, avoiding certain places and seeking others, following a definite path and making for a definite goal. During all this time, the stillness continued unbroken, nor did he meet a single living thing, either bird or beast. After he had been walking for what seemed to him several hours, the vegetation grew thinner, the jungle less dense, and from a more or less open space in it, he seemed to discern what might have been a mountain, entirely submerged in a multitude of heavy grey clouds. He sat down on the green stuff, which was like grass and yet was not grass, at the edge of the open space whence he got this view, and quite naturally he picked from the boughs of an overhanging tree a large red juicy fruit and ate it. Then he said to himself, he knew not why, that he must not waste time but must be moving on. He took a path to the right of him and descended the sloping jungle with big buoyant strides, almost running. He knew the way as though he had been down that path 1,000 times. He knew that in a few moments he would reach a whole hanging garden of red flowers, and he knew that when he had reached this, he must again turn to the right. It was as he thought. The red flowers soon came to view. He turned sharply, and then through the thinning greenery he caught sight of an open plain where more mushrooms grew. But the plain was as yet a great way off, and the mushrooms seemed quite small. "I shall get there in time," he said to himself.